To anyone who finds my journal, this is the story of how the war between the states came to comfort Texas in 1862, and how we Germans living here were called traitors for siding with the North, including my papa, who refused to keep his opinions to himself. Everyone knows what happens to traitors, so I must find a way to save our family. Anna Sophia Franziska Gunther. Comfort, Texas, 1861 to 1862. Christmas Eve, 1861. Dear reader, I am afraid for us. Terrible things are happening to Germans like us because we are on the wrong side of the war. We're the Unionists in a state that has left the Union and joined the Confederacy. What an awful way to begin my new journal, especially on Christmas Eve. The time of peace on earth and goodwill to men, but I have promised myself to write only the truth here. This Christmas there is no peace and goodwill. There is a war going on, and the war between the states, between the North and South. I don't mean that battles are being fought here in Texas, not yet anyway, but I have read stories in the newspaper about Germans being hanged for their beliefs in saving the Union. By Union, I mean the United States. We Germans want this country to stay together, but the southern states seceded and formed the Confederacy. Now only the North is called the Union, and we are killing each other to decide whether we are one country or two. So I worry whenever Papa is late coming home like tonight. We had gone on a hauling trip for Fountain Mercantile Store. I tried to forget my worries while I hung ornaments on the cedar tree. Still I listened for Max, our sheepdog. He always makes happy yelps when Papa is coming. All I heard was the sizzling fire in the fireplace and Mama talking to Willie in the kitchen. Put the forks on the left, Liebchen, she said. Setting the table is a girl's task, but Willie doesn't know. He's only 3 years old. The door between us was closed, so he could not see the Christmas tree until after supper. I took the glass strawberry out of the box. Last Christmas it came from Grossmutter, my grandmother who lives in Germany. This year we did not get a package from her because President Lincoln has ordered a blockade of our Gulf ports. I hung the strawberry and started worrying about Papa again. What if the Vigilance Committee waylaid him again? I thought if I went out on the gallery to watch, he would come. So I took my woolen shawl from the hook beside the door and stepped out. Wonder of wonders, snow was falling. Never in 12 years that we lived in Texas had it snowed on Christmas Eve. Big flakes floated down, covering Mama's flower garden and the paths. Nothing evil could happen on such a magical night. Max came back to me and licked my fingers. I knelt to stroke his black fur, the white around his neck, and the blaze down his nose. Suddenly his ear pricked. He lifted his nose, sniffing the air, and with a yelp bounded off towards the side gate. I knew it was Papa. Draping the shawl over my head, I followed Max and opened the gate. Together we ran down the road toward Cypress Creek, and then I saw him through the white veil. He walked beside the 2 oxen as they pulled the wagon up the hill, his head high, his back straight. A sprinkling of snow lay across the broad shoulders of his coat on his hat. Papa, I called, you're home. I was getting worried. Jacqueline, Sophie. He is the only one who ever called me Little Sophie. When I reached him, he put one arm around my shoulders, and I fell into step while Max jumped all around us, yelping for joy. Papa smelled cold, fresh air. I looked up at him and let the flakes land on my face. He is a tall, handsome man, my Papa. Everyone says I favor him. We both have dark, curly hair, dimples, and a widow's peak. He does not wear a beard, but no one would take him for a boy. How are Willie and your mother? They are both well, Papa. I knew he was concerned about my mom because she is with child. How was your trip? Did you sell any paintings? Only 2. Cypress Cathedral and sheep safely grazing. San Antonio is not exactly dressed in. I ran ahead to open the wagon gate and Papa turned off the road. As we headed towards the barn, the front door opened and Willie darted out, squealing about Papa in the snow. Mama was behind him, her blonde hair braided and wrapped around her head like a halo. Frederick, she called him. Papa strode through the garden gate, swept Willie up, and enclosed the 2 of them in his arms. Where's the Weihnachtsmann? Willie asked. That is what we called Santa Claus. He's coming yet, Willie. Now go inside before you catch a cold and don't look at the tree. Papa sat him down and started for the barn with Max at his heels. Then he turned. Bring a lantern, will you, Sophie? By the time I got to the barn, Papa had driven the wagon into the passageway. I hung the lantern on a hook and closed the barn doors. While he removed the yoke, I put some hay in the manger for the oxen. Then Papa climbed into the wagon, ducked under the canvas cover, and handed me a large bag of oranges. I embraced it, inhaling the tangy smell. It wouldn't be Christmas without oranges, I said. Papa smiled, but I sensed there was something on his mind. What's wrong? I asked. He chuckled. Nothing escapes you, does it, Sophie? Nien, I replied, waiting. I think you should know about this, but you must not speak a word to your mother. I shook my head, dreading what was to come. On the way home, I passed a German farmstead. The house had been burned to the ground and the owner hung from a tree out front. I gasped. Why, Papa? But I knew why. For being a unionist, Sophie, for wanting to save the Union. I could not speak for a moment. We could be next. Papa draws newspaper cartoons that criticize the Confederacy. What is the Vigilance Committee? I asked. He nodded. Oh, Papa, please, I beg you. Don't speak out anymore. At least don't send cartoons to the Zeitung. Couldn't you just pretend to be for the Confederacy? He shook his head. Me and Sophie, I'll not pretend. I'll not condone slavery. But couldn't you just keep your thoughts to yourself? Papa stepped near and clasped my shoulders. Sophie, that is why we left Germany, so we could be free to say what we think. Ja? I say nothing. He looked at me for a moment. A man is not a man if he cannot speak his mind. I know, Papa, he is a dead man, surely. I clapped my hand over my mouth. What if saying makes it so? Papa's arms dropped to his side and he took a step back. There are things worse than death, Sophie. What? What could possibly be worse? Not being true to oneself? I don't care about that. I don't care about slaves or the Union. I don't want the war to come here. I don't want anything to change or die. Not ever, ever, ever. There was a hard lump in my throat that would not go away even when I swallowed. And I blinked to keep back the tears. They ran down my cheeks. Papa took out his linen handkerchief. Here, Sophie. Wipe your eyes. We stood in silence for a time. The only sound came from the oxen eating. I kept the handkerchief over my face. Sophie, Papa said, at last, everything does not change whether you want it to or not. Everything that is alive grows and changes. I looked at him. And dies. Sophie, you will grow into a young woman and marry and have children of your own. My grandchildren, perhaps another Klein Sophie. But how am I to get another Papa? I screamed. Then turned and ran out of the barn through the snow to the house. I burst into the living room, dropped my shawl on the sofa, and began to decorate the tree furiously. As I worked, the strawberry fell to the floor and shattered. Janine, I said, staring at the pieces. Mama opened the kitchen door a crack. Sophie, what did you break? I told her and began to sweep it up. My beloved strawberry was gone. Luck and glass, how easily they break, and all because of this dreadful war. In the beginning, I thought we were safe in our valley of the Guadalupe River and the hills all around. The San Antonio Zeitung had stories about battles in faraway places like Virginia and South Carolina, but now the war is coming closer. You might say it is war because it started this year on April 12th, my 12th birthday. Even so, what can I do about it? I'm just a young girl. Soon Papa was stomping the snow off his boots out on the gallery. From the corner of my eye, I saw him come in and set a bag on the floor by the tree. The Winchus man left this outside, he said. You had better go in the kitchen while I put the gifts under the tree. I'll finish the decorating. He hung his coat on a chair before the fire and stood there a moment with his back to me, warming his hands in his brown waistcoat. His shoulders looked so broad and strong that suddenly I felt safe. Papa was home.